Vanakkam and welcome to the Tasmanz short film competition. You made it here. Yay. First of all, I just want to say this is incredible. What you're going to go on the next few months, the journey of making this film, will probably be a lifelong skill and experience that you'll remember forever. Making your first film, not even your first film, just making a film is an ultimate learning experience. It's not just about making a film. You learn about leadership skills, you learn about working as a team, you learn about communication. It's skills that you can use in any field in your life. But secondly, it's so awesome for us here in New Zealand to be able to see ourselves on screen. As an actor who works in this industry, as a filmmaker who works in the industry, I am so tired of telling European stories. So the fact that there's Tamil people telling Tamil stories for a Tamil audience is really exciting. It's something to be welcomed, and this will not be possible if you don't come to the party. So this is our way of saying welcome, vanakkam, and let's support you and help you out in any way we can towards making this the most enjoyable experience that you have. Cool. My name is Ahilan Karunaharan. I trained at New Zealand Drama School and subsequently did a degree in film and theatre, and for the last kind of 8 years I've been working professionally as a writer, director, producer, and sometimes actor as well. This is just me spending some time with you to just throw some, nuggets at you towards your filmmaking adventure that you're going to go on. This may be useful to you or may not be, but it's just about me just spending some time throwing some of the experience that I've had towards helping you tell your story to the best of your ability. So, movie பண்ணும்போது மூணு விஷயங்கள் மிக முக்கியம். First thing is, what do you want to say? Who do you want to say it to? And what do you want them to feel? அதாவது நீங்கள் சொல்ல போற சிறு அந்த குறும்படத்துல முதலாவது நீங்கள் என்ன சொல்ல விரும்புகிறீர்கள், அதை யாருக்கு சொல்ல விரும்புகிறீர்கள், அதாவது ஒரு ஆடியன்ஸ் யார், and lastly உங்கள் ஆடியன்ஸ் how they should feel, எப்படி அவங்க ரெஸ்பாண்ட் பண்ணணும். இந்த மூணு questions-உம் is something you need to keep coming back to as a maker, as you're editing, as you're filming, as you're directing, as you're rehearsing. And the filmmaking process, in that time, always keep coming back. That's almost like an anchor, the thing that holds you together. Okay, so the three most important things for any creative process. 1, what do you want to say? 2, who do you want to say it to? And 3, how do you want them to feel? Cool, so you decided to make a short film with your friends. Awesome. Now, the thing that really is important to any short film is, what is the story? Now, a good exercise, and this is something that we do in our film workshops and in our writing workshops, is to be able to tell your story in one sentence. So, as a team, try and tell your story in one sentence. It's really nice to get that economy and if you can stick short film, because what happens is a lot of short filmmakers, they try to tell, or a feature film, they try and cram it all in there. A short film is about a moment, that'll be effective. So the things to consider while you're making a film is, 1, where you're going to tell your story. Location makes everything easy. If you shoot your film in one place, it makes it so much more easier for your DOP and for your budget and everything else. But also, again, coming back to the idea of economy, some of the most simplest things are the most powerful things that you can communicate across in the medium of film. The other thing is, try and aim to get your film under 10, 15 minutes. I mean, of course, I know some of you have bigger stories to tell. So, that's fine. But the idea is that the smaller you can make it, the more easier it's going to be for you. But the most important thing about making the film, in a short film, is that just remember that it's a visual medium. So it's not a Murray Naraham, it's not a radio drama, it's a short film. So the key is, don't tell, show. அதாவது அதை பற்றி சொல்ல வேண்டாம், காட்டுங்க. In cinema you can communicate. நீங்கள் எவ்வளோ விஷயங்கள் காட்சிகள் மூலமா you can show us. ஒரு கதாபாத்திரம் என்ன மனநிலையில் இருக்குது, what kind of mental status your actor in, what the location is, what is the political kind of climate, what is the world of the play. Everything that you want to communicate about the film, you can cut conversations and you can communicate that just by 3 or 4 establishing shots, which takes me to the most important thing. The first 30 seconds of your film, உங்க முதல் 30 நிமிடம், அந்த 30 வினாடி, is probably the most important moment in your short film, because that is when you can win your audience. A good exercise is to go, what do you want to communicate in that first 30 seconds? அந்த படம் தொடங்கின உடனே அந்த முதல் 30 செகண்ட்ஸ்ல நீங்க என்ன கம்யூனிகேட் பண்ண விரும்புறீங்களோ you have to really think about that. Yeah. Now, a really good exercise when scripting your film, because some of you might already have a story, and some of you might not already have a story in mind. One of the things I do when I get stuck, எனக்கு கதை எழுதணும் அவசரமா நாளைக்கு ஒரு ஷூட் இருக்கு, அதாவது ஸ்டோரி தாங்க இல்லாட்டி டிவி சீரியலுக்கு இன்னும் கேட்கல, பட் கேட்டுச்சுன்னு என்றால் one of the best ways I do is I always grab a newspaper and look at headlines to get ideas. Sometimes I just get Facebook statuses of people and go, here, there's something happening here, to create characters. And then you put these characters together and go, what would happen? And then you might get the starting, I guess, brainstorming sessions of your story. It's a lot easier to come in with an idea that is close to your heart. உங்களுக்கு தெரிஞ்ச விஷயம் உங்களுக்கு தெரிஞ்ச ஆக்களை பற்றி எழுதுறது ரொம்ப easy, because it's something that you're more familiar with. I guess one of the things when you're making your film, நீங்கள் அதை எழுதும் பொழுது நீங்கள் நினைக்க வேண்டியது உங்கள் protagonist, your hero or heroine of the story is, what do they want? இந்த படத்தை நீங்கள் எடுத்துக்கொண்டாலும், any story you take, the character needs something. அதாவது படத்தின் ஆரம்பத்திலிருந்து படத்தின் முடிவு வரைக்கும் ஏதாவது ஒன்று அவைகள் வேணும். They should be wanting something. So in film language we call that a super objective. அதாவது so your character's super objective is what drives the story forward. All the obstacles that come in the way of the storytelling is what keeps the drama going. So when a character, say for example, you have a film and your character wants to buy a house. That is his dream. Or a வீடு வாங்க வேண்டும்ன்றதுதான் அவன் super objective. But the obstacles that get in the way, bank doesn't give him a loan, he's really broke, or he has financial woes. So I guess moving that forward is, as a filmmaker, is trying to give him solutions. And when the character receives, and the character, the want, need, either if he gets it, as an audience, we celebrate with them, or if he doesn't get it, we sympathize with them. It's a way that you can make us invest in your character. But anyway, I'm going way over the place, so let me just get this back. Okay, so you have a story. You're going to make a film, and you're writing a script. There's two things you must really consider while you're doing this. One is when to advance the story, and second, when to extend the story. Other, there's two things: advancing and extending. Some films you watch, and within like about 3 minutes, you're like, yeah, I get the point. I know what you're trying to say. Come on, get the story going. And some stories you're watching it, and then they jump too fast into the next scene. You're like, no, I wanted to know more about that. So it's for you as a writer, for you as a team, looking at the moments in your story and go, what is worth investing in, extending, and what is worth advancing? And a good exercise to do this is to write your entire story. And I normally, when I work, I use post-it notes. So I break down every moment in post-it notes and stick it up on the wall. And then I look at the time that I have for each shot. I go, there's 30 seconds for each post-it note. This scene will be really funny. I think people might really enjoy this. So therefore, then I extend that a little bit longer. So for example, let's take a story. Okay, let's talk party, what is it? Okay, simple. Crow comes and sees the grandmother making butter, takes the butter, flies off, and a fox turns up, and the fox kind of throws faux compliments at the crow. Crow gets a little bit, taken aback and starts singing, and the butter falls off its mouth. The Nari picks it up. Nari is a fox, by the way, and then the crow is left empty-handed. The moral of the story, I think, is for those who cheat other people will be cheated back. So we're going to use this story as an example, as a udaranam for you guys, to give you some pointers towards maybe perhaps helping you in scripting your own short film and telling a stellar story. So, in the movie எடுக்கும் பொழுதும் முக்கியமானது looking at who is your protagonist. So in the movie Kaham, Party, and Fox, 3 characters. Now, if you want to go experimental style, but Virumandi Padab Madri, you can make that film மூன்று பெர்ஸ்பெக்டிவ். ஸோ ஒரு ஃபிலிம் ஒரு ஸ்டோரியில் காகத்தின் பெர்ஸ்பெக்டிவ் நீங்கள் படத்தை பார்க்கலாம். ரெண்டாவது சீனில் you can watch from Nari's perspective, and third story you can watch it from Party's. Or you can go, A.R. Murugadas style, backwards, screenplay work backwards. கடைசியிலிருந்து படத்தை ஃப்ளாஷ்பேக்கை சொல்லலாம். ஸோ காகம் சோகமாக இருக்கலாம், ஏன் காகம் சோகமாக இருக்குது, then you can come back to the start where he steals the vada and then the narrator goes. So there's multiple ways to tell your story, and I guess the key is for you as a filmmaker is finding what is the best vehicle and what is the best way for you to move forward. Now the most important thing of course is when you're telling a story. ஒரு கதை சொல்லும் பொழுது எப்போ அந்த கதையை நகர்த்தி அடுத்த சீனுக்கு கொண்டு போகிறது, இல்லாட்டி இருக்கிற அந்த மூமெண்ட்லேருந்து எக்ஸ்டெண்ட் பண்ணுறது. ஸோ ஃபார் எக்ஸாம்பிள் இந்த பாட்டி வடை சுத்த கடை எடுத்தோம் என்றால் அந்த பாட்டி வடை சுடுறத நீங்கள் 5 minutes-ஆக அழகாக ஷூட் பண்ணலாம். பட் பாட்டி வடை சுடுறது வந்து இஸ் நாட் த இம்பார்ட்டன்ட் பார்ட் ஆஃப் த ஸ்டோரி. த இம்பார்ட்டன்ட் பார்ட் ஆஃப் த ஸ்டோரி இஸ் Kaham coming and taking the vada and the nari coming and getting the vada off the Kaham. So you can do quick establishing shots. So it's a setup. So in the first 30 seconds in your film, Ninga, what you have to communicate is this: there's an old woman making something delicious, she's making some food, and she is robbed by the Kaham. You can tell that in 30 seconds, and then you can use the rest of the film to play this interplay, because the key characters in this, I say, and I think, is the crow and the fox. Now the other thing is, short film பண்ணும் பொழுது, there's a visual medium. So, காகத்துக்கு dialogue கிடையாது அவ்வளவு, நரிக்கும் dialogue கிடையாது. But, what you can think is, அவ்வளவு விஷயங்கள், how many things can you just show visually without having to use dialogue? Because sometimes when you're making short forms, we don't have the resources of sound gear, and maybe it's easier for us to be able to communicate things universally. Because, again, short film, you have a short amount of time. So you have to try and tell your story as effectively and as economically as possible. Now, the other thing to really, think about is when you're making a film, and I think this is like a Bible, it's like the foundation to any good storytelling is, what do you want to say? Who do you want to say it to? And what do you want them to feel? அதாவது நீங்கள் என்ன சொல்ல விரும்புகிறீர்கள், யாருக்கு அதை சொல்ல விரும்புகிறீர்கள், அவர்கள் என்ன ஃபீலிங்ஸ், அதாவது அவளை எப்படி பாதிக்கணும்னு நீங்கள் அந்த திரைப்படத்தின் மூலம் எதிர்பார்க்கிறீர்கள் என்றது. அது 3 kind of, I think, important things that every writer, director, even composer, like every person who's contributing to your film has to constantly think, how am I feeding, or how am I guess, leading up to that vision of this ultimate goal. So let's take this party again. What are they trying to say? If you cheat someone, ultimately, you will be cheated back. Who is the story for? Well, it can be for everyone and anyone. But I think if you're very specific, and a filmmaker, you're very clear in the community, in the age group, for these people, you speak to them directly, your work is likely to be more universal. Rather or section, if you make your film, the chances are you are going to be so clear in trying to communicate that it will speak more globally. So you look at films like by, Alejandro Inarritu Gonzalez, who's made The Revenant, The Birdman. Now, The Birdman was made primarily for the acting community, for actors who work in stage dramas. But, the film did extremely well last year, won all the Oscars, and it was globally applauded because it was very specific, but the specificity makes that story universal. So it's looking for the universality in your work. Okay, so you've got a story, and you are starting to write dialogue. Now, as you know, I'm Sri Lankan Tamil, and one of my challenges when I'm writing for stage is to make naturalistic dialogue. Because the way I speak to my mom and the way that I write when I'm writing on stage is 2 different things. And you probably watch Tamil films, you probably watch Indian Tamil films, and then you can watch a lot of, Ulam-based Sri Lankan Tamil films. You probably watch, films from Singapore and Malaysia as well. Our language, if you're making films in Tamil, the dialect is so different. So how do you make dialogue sound natural? And one of the things that I always do is I do extensive workshops before I go into scripting. So if I've cast the actors, then take them, give them the scenario and get them to play. And the scene but the scene leading up to that moment. படத்துல அந்த சீன்ஸ் வராமலே இருக்கலாம். But for example, if you're doing the party Varasutakada as your thing, and let's imagine the film was shot in Sri Lanka and a Sri Lankan village, and the characters have to speak in a Tamil Sri Lankan dialect. What you can do is that, if there's an actor playing these characters, you can get them to workshop and see what their natural rhythm is. Because sometimes it might be best just to know who your actor is and write dialogue based on their inflection. But how do you make language sound natural? And that's a really hard thing. Because ultimately you can make a really bad script and good actors can make that sing. Or you can have a really good script and bad actors can make that dialogue sound really stilted and unnatural. And my way of coping with that is economy. Little, less is more. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. நாங்கள் நிஜ வாழ்க்கையில் கலைக்கும் போது இப்படி இந்த மாதிரி நிறைய நீண்ட நேரமாக கலைக்க மாட்டோம். Very simple, we're very short, we don't have time. And this day and age, especially this kind of YouTube culture, the time of frame that we have for people is very, very limited. So think about that in your short film. Think Mani Ratnam, people make jokes about his film, illa. Like narakkandu nachundu simple solliruvaru. One of the things that you should really consider, and I think is all your technicians, because your musical director, your DOP, your editor, நீங்க ஸ்டோரி எழுதலாம், நீங்க ரைட் பண்ணலாம். அல்டிமேட்லி உங்க படத்தை தூக்கி நிறுக்க போறது இல்லாட்டி அதை ஷேப் பண்ணி மெருகூட்ட போறது உங்க டெக்னீஷியன்ஸ். You can advance the story, you can really enhance the story through your technicians. So look at the strength that they bring to your team. Watch movies, watch a lot of short films and look at how music really travels through. Unga scenic instrumentation and adukku sariyana vaathyam ennu you can talk and you can discuss. And as a director, you can throw provocations to your technicians. And often enakku vanda technical camera patti onnume theriyadu. So I trust that my technician will do it, but I know that technician can help tell my story in a certain way. Certain shots, certain angles can advance the story. நான் டயலாக்ல சொல்ல தேவையில்லாததை கேமரா மூலமா அவர் சொல்லுவார். நான் டயலாக்ல சொல்ல தேவையில்லாததை மியூசிக் மூலமா இல்லை மியூசிக் டைரக்டர் சொல்ல முடியும். So they are also helping to tell your story, not someone that's coming in the last minute to add all the seasoning to the food. ஆரம்பத்திலிருந்தே include them in your story making process because they can really help with that. Cool? I hope that makes sense. கதை முடிவு பண்ணியாச்சு, டீம் முடிவு பண்ணியாச்சு, காஸ்டிங் உங்கள் படத்தில் யார் ஹீரோ, யார் ஹீரோயின், யார் கமெடியன் and நீங்கள் டிசைட் பண்ண நேரம் வந்தாச்சு.
I'm trying to cast you, I'm trying to be a director.
Okay, go ahead.
Let me say, I'm trying to remake Jurassic Park.
Dinosaur.
To the dinosaur.
By the way, dinosaur வந்து தமிழ்ல ஜுராசிக் பார்க் பார்த்துருக்கீங்களா?
இல்ல.
சன் டிவியில் ஒருக்கா போட்டாங்க. டினோசோர் சொல்லுவாங்க. அதில் வந்து அங்கே பாடா பெரிய பள்ளி வருது. So funny, you should check it out. But on that note, எனக்கு டைனோசோர் மாதிரிலாம் வரக்கு அந்த சரியான எமோஷனல் நோட்ஸ் நீங்கள் கொடுக்கணும் டிரெக்டர் சார். சொல்லுங்க. அந்த டைனோசருக்கு எத்தனை வயசு?
அந்த டைனோசருக்கு இப்போ 35
வயசு இருக்குமா? டைனோசருக்கு அப்பா அம்மா இருக்கா இல்லையா?
எல்லாமே
இருக்கா? டைனோசர் வெஜிடேரியனா இல்லாட்டி?
only on Fridays.
Oh, நல்ல ஸ்ரீலங்கன் ஹிந்து டைனோசரா? ஓகே. டைனோசருக்கு இந்த மாதிரி குரல் பிரகாஷ் ராஜ் மாதிரியா?
I think you're rejected. Too many questions.
Actors who ask too many questions. Cut.